Hey, Senator, Sheriff. Who's the guy on the area?
Hi, Robin. How are you?
You know who the guy is on the area? The bald guy.
Hey now,
Is he our Homeland Security guy? Oh?
Hey, that's not my district. See, and there's another one else to get to.
You want me to ask for it?
Yeah, just. I could look at.
It's just,
Okay. All right. Okay.
what's it?
It's the Homeland Security. Oh, that was good. Where did he? Oh, he's going to be in the back. All right, we all ready to roll? As soon as our last. Yeah, I think. All right, folks, good evening. My name is Lauren Boyette. I'm a city councilman in Ward 3 here in Fort Morgan, and I am thrilled to be here this evening and beyond honored to be your representative in Ward 3. So I have a couple of opening remarks. If you didn't get a chance to sign in and you would like to, we'll keep that sign-in sheet there, but a few opening remarks and then we'll go ahead and kick things off. So before we begin, I want to thank all who are here and those of you who are watching this on YouTube. There's, as I said, a sign-in sheet on the table for those who wish to receive any updates and participate in any future events which will arise out of this discussion tonight. If you're watching this, you can enter your contact details and we will also include you in future events. Anybody that's going to be speaking tonight, we would ask if you would come up to the microphone. That way the folks on YouTube watching this at home will be able to hear you. And I think there are going to be opportunities. I don't know how that works. I'm not the technical person, but they will be able to kind of chat in some questions. So this event has arisen out of community concern around some challenging issues that we're facing around drugs, homelessness, mental and behavioral health, crime, and some of the intersections that play between them. These issues are not unique to Fort Morgan. These are larger societal topics that are being dealt with across the state, nation, and even around the world. However, we're here to speak tonight specifically about our community and some of the issues, impacts, limitations, and potential solutions that are relative to our community. We only have a brief amount of time tonight, so we'll start fixing our community first and then solve the world's problems if there's any time remaining. I want to set the tone for this evening that centers on respect, civility, and curiosity. I know that some of you have things on your mind and we want to hear from you and learn from you, but because of our limited time, please be aware of others in the room and those who are watching who also have questions or comments that they wish to share. We want to hear from as many of you as possible, so try to limit your comments so others can share also. Tonight's discussion is meant to be a starting point. That said, I want to thank, I was going to say Chief Sharp, but he told me that really it's Michelle who's monitoring our YouTube participants this evening. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Lauren. So for assembling the folks here to participate on the expert panel, and I thank all of the folks on the panel for your willingness to be here to listen, learn, and share. So here's how we would like to start things and how we want things to go. Since so much time goes on behind the scenes on the issues, we'll start by having each person on the panel introduce themselves, describe what they do, the role they play as it relates to the subjects of drugs, homelessness, mental health and behavioral health, and crime, and to share some of the challenges that they face in their work, some of the other things that they're doing. Then we'll open things up for community members present and watching for comments and questions. You can direct your questions to specific folks up here or to the panel at large. When all is said and done tonight, you may hear some things that may change the way you look at these issues. Hopefully, we'll offer you some actions that you can take to be proactive and part of potential community solutions. Thank you. We'll get started. Lauren?
Okay, I'm Lauren Sharp. I'm the Chief of Police here in Fort Morgan. I think probably, this is something that touches everybody, right, in some way or another. I think our biggest frustration, and I'm not trying to speak on behalf of the other law enforcement, but we are law enforcement, and oftentimes people mistake that as people that are going to come in and fix a homelessness issue or a mental health issue or a drug addiction, and that's not our role. Our role is enforcing the law. So anytime these people violate the law, we can enforce it. But what happens often is we get somebody that's maybe mentally ill at Walgreens, for example, and they're talking to themselves, and it makes us feel uncomfortable, but that's not illegal. We can't arrest somebody for having a mental illness. We can't arrest somebody for being homeless. We can only arrest them when they commit a crime. And so we are the ones that get called first. When you don't know who else to call the police, we get there. And then we are often spending hours with some of these people. And we're working with other agencies, and I think Dante can speak about some of the stuff we're doing with Centennial Mental Health. But we're trying to do that to get these resources for people as well. So that's kind of our frustration. Our role falls on usually those laws, and certainly, and we brought Rich Ojala here from Homeland Security Investigations, who we have partnered with for drug enforcement activities. We do go after the drug dealers, not necessarily the drug users, because there's so many drug users we just can't. And frankly, as Senator Pelton can discuss, the laws say it's a misdemeanor to possess drugs. So really, we can write you a ticket, and then if you don't go to court, nothing happens. So that's part of our frustration as well. We see these people over and over and over. We write them tickets. There's really no consequence on the back end. So we're going after the people selling the drug. If we can slow the supply, we can make it more difficult for the users, and that's kind of our role. So.
I can go next. My name is Byron Pelton. I am your state senator for Senate District 1, which is Logan, Morgan, the majority of Weld, Phillips, Sedgwick, Washington, and Yuma counties. Like Chief Sharp said, what's going on at the Capitol, they have not done an excellent job at helping law enforcement. They've actually hurt law enforcement. I've ran 2 bills in my past 2 years. One was going to hold drug dealers accountable if somebody died of an overdose and that drug was sold to that individual. We were going to hold them accountable and make it a Class 2 felony. We barely got it passed out of the Senate, myself and Kyle Mullica from Thornton, barely got it passed out of the Senate, and then it died in the House. This last year, I ran a bill with Representative Mike Lynch to make fentanyl a felony. Any fentanyl at all a felony. It died in committee in the House. Didn't even make it over to the Senate. This next year, I have another bill coming across that's going to do the same thing. It's going to combine those two together, and we're going to work our tails off to get something to happen. Because with fentanyl and methamphetamines that are coming into our communities, it's hurting our communities. And we're going to do everything we can at the state. Now I'm in the minority, so it's a difficult thing, but I've been working my tail off to make something happen. I've also been working with Dante over at Centennial to see if we can't get more resources to him and to more resources out here and into rural Colorado to help with behavioral health and drug addiction, because it's a two-pronged approach, right? You got to get the people that want help, and then you also got to be able to hold drug dealers accountable to keep it out of your communities. And that's what we're trying to do. And I have been working my tail off to make sure that we can do that. But it is very difficult up there. They don't seem to think, there are people in the legislature that don't seem to think that we need to hold anybody accountable for any kind of overdoses or drug deaths in the state. And our drug deaths are climbing. Fentanyl is climbing with the drug deaths all across the state. The actual national average is coming down, but Colorado's is still going up, and it's a terrible thing. So I appreciate being invited here. I really do, and talking to you about this, because this has been one of my number one issues at the state to take care of, and it's just been a challenge at the state because we're not in power, and it's a very difficult thing to get some of the reasonable Democrats on my side, and I got enough to get it out of the Senate the last time, and I hope I can do it again. So thank you for having me here, and I appreciate it.
I'm Dave Martin. I'm your elected county sheriff. I don't have a lot to add to what Lauren put out there, other than one of my statutory duties as a sheriff is to maintain a jail. And so the laws have changed drastically since COVID. And so people talk about the influx and the outflux of people. They come to jail and they're out before the ink is dry on the paperwork, I'll be honest with you. The bond schedules have changed in the courts, and holding people in custody for any length of time is very difficult. So we have several people in custody. The mental health that Lauren and Byron were talking about is real problematic. I have people in jail right now that are incompetent to stand trial for the crimes that they're there for, and they're warehoused until there's a bed available somewhere in the state. And to give you an example, I had somebody that's been in my jail since June 4 of last year, and he was transported 3 days ago to the state hospital. That's how long he waited until there was a bed available. So it's very, very problematic.
All right, I'll go ahead and go. My name is Dante Gonzalez. I'm the CEO at Centennial Mental Health. I've been here for almost 2 years now, and I've been a Fort Morgan resident for that entire time. So this issue does also affect me as well in my daily life. I do want to kind of just really start off with where we're at as a center and an organization with our approach to homelessness. I think one of our primary focuses, my focus coming in, has been to focus on preventative care and how do we get ahead of the system. Recognizing coming out of COVID, we did lose about 50% of the providers that serviced our entire service area. Fort Morgan was deeply impacted by that. We've been able to bring back a lot of services and a lot of providers. We do have 5 therapy providers now. Not all of them are full-time, and some of them do their services part-time over telehealth, but they're focused on serving Morgan County through our Fort Morgan facility. We also have 3 case managers and 2 peer specialists that provide supportive services. We're expanding with hopefully with an additional grant from the Region 4 Opioid Council to have some additional substance use peer support out here. That's one area that we're definitely looking at expanding. We've put in a grant there to add 2 additional substance use peer support providers, and we are transitioning 2 prior substance use positions into substance use peer support providers. So we really want to start building more robust services in the outpatient realm, so we don't have to focus on where we know there's downstream effects in the inpatient system and the state hospital system that's creating this pressure downwards on our local capacity to serve folks. So that's really been our approach, is getting back to some sense of normalcy so we can provide services. Also, as Chief Sharp alluded to, we have our new community responder program where we're focusing on how do we interact with individuals, do more local street outreach, and find individuals where they're at to connect them to resources rather than waiting for them to come in and recognize when they're ready for help. So we can't compel individuals into engaging in services. There is some things that some folks ask about in terms of when can you compel folks to get services with our M1 holds and things like that. We could go into some detail and explain those things if you'd like, but really all individuals are just like you and I, right? They all have their own individual rights and freedoms, and you wouldn't want anybody infringing on those rights. And so that's why the laws are ruled the way they are. So with M1s, we really have to focus on when does an individual pose an imminent threat to themselves or others. And with that, with a timely assessment, we could look at placing them on a hold. Going through the process, working with John, we do all of our holds at the ER here at St. Elizabeth. We don't have any holding facilities in Centennial, which then puts undue stress and harm on them. And then we work through the hospitalization and inpatient process for those individuals as well. So just wanted to put some of that out there. Definitely when we get into the Q&A time, happy to answer more questions. But if you can walk away with anything, that we definitely are looking at our approach to make sure that we do bring resources to the community, thanks to a lot of the reform efforts from Senator Pelton, and that it is really going to be fruitful and impactful going forward, the way that our payment model changes and things start evening out to be able to allow rural Colorado to thrive on a similar plane to the Front Range. We'll be able to bring, hopefully expand on our community responder programs and start getting more resources out there to support individuals and community.
Just to interject real quick, I know he mentioned all of these M1 holds go to the hospital. I don't think everybody understands, but it used to be that the jail could take these people and hold them. That no longer is the case. It's illegal. They can go to the hospital or a facility, which we don't have here. So that's part of our resource problem. They can no longer be taken to jail. That's illegal. So
Let's jump down to the end of the table, and then we'll work back this way.
Hello. My name is Rich Ojala. I'm the acting resident agent in charge for Homeland Security Investigations out of the Greeley, Colorado office, which covers the northeastern plains of Colorado. Just to reiterate what the sheriff and the chief have said, we are working jointly on the opioid issue and other drugs as well. Most of our dealers are polydrug. Fentanyl is obviously one of the more deadly ones, but there's with methamphetamine and everything else, there's all sorts of collateral damage that goes with that. Primarily, we are focusing on the large distributors. Unfortunately, right now, just the way things are at the macro level, the amount of drugs coming into the country is just, it would blow your mind. How we can kind of tell how good of a job we're doing based on prices of street-level drugs, and unfortunately, with the fentanyl, it's cratered. Some communities, not that long ago, were paying $20 per pill. Now, if buying in bulk, you can get them for under $1. So that's kind of the challenge that we're facing right now, and we're trying to work from the federal to the state to the local level and try and do what we can do, just targeting the large distributors.
All right. Hi, my name is John Swanhorst. I'm the Chief Nursing Officer at St. Elizabeth Hospital. I've also lived in the community for almost 2 years now. My background's nursing. Significant portion of that has been in emergency departments, both as a clinical nurse and then also as leadership. In small towns, I grew up in McCook, Nebraska, just a few hours from here, starting in the ED there. I've worked in 60,000, 70,000 population towns, and I've worked in large cities in more urban EDs. And we're here to talk about homelessness, and I think part of that is, as you're seeing, is that the drug abuse, the drug use, and behavioral health are very closely related to that population. I think for us, from a hospital standpoint, we have a great relationship with Dante's team and Centennial Mental Health. With some continued funding just recently found, we're going to have a continued strong relationship, which is great for us. The purpose of the hospital when it comes to a lot of this is really to ensure that we're providing care to the best of our ability. And unfortunately, we don't, and we're never going to have the resources to be able to have the inpatient psychiatric services that we're talking about that we need across the state. We need increased inpatient beds. Unfortunately, we're not going to have that here in Fort Morgan. Our job is to be available and ready to whenever Dante's team, Chief Sharp's team, a patient walks off the street into our ED, we're here to be prepared that we can take care of those patients in a safe way so that we can ensure that we're getting an assessment done. And I think a lot of times we get really confused or really discouraged, frustrated with patients because we're from the outside saying, this is what you need. This is what's going to make you get better. This is what you need to not be on the streets. And unfortunately, it's not our role or our job, really anybody in this room, to force somebody to take the care that we want to give them. And so I think that's a challenge. And as a hospital, as the emergency department, it's our job to keep the patient safe. It's also our job to make sure the population and the community is safe. So legally, unless a patient has thoughts of harming themselves, killing themselves, harming others, killing others, we really aren't legally allowed to keep a patient in our department, in our hospital. If they do show signs of suicidal ideation, if they show signs of homicidal ideations, that's when we partner with Dante and his team to get that patient safely to the front range to an inpatient behavioral health bed. That's probably our biggest role when it comes to behavioral health. When we look at substance use, substance abuse, overdose, our department, I would say, our ED at any given day, most times of the day has a patient that's experiencing mental health issues or substance use issues. It's our role to provide the patient what they need at that time and what they're ready to have provided to them. We've recently started an inpatient medical detox program that allows patients to come into the facility typically for 3 days to detox off what other substance they're working to detox off. That can be alcohol, that can be opioids, that can be benzos, it can be a combination of both. Typically, we're utilizing that treatment or that ability to detox to then set them up for success in a long-term treatment program. We're not there going to be able to treat the addiction, but we're going to get that patient ready to be successful in their treatment however they decide. When it comes down to homelessness and how we care for those patients, those are our patients, whether they have a home to go to or whether sometimes our waiting room is their home for the night, whether they're going to Rising Up for the night. Our role and our goal is to make sure that we know the resources is within the community and that we're partnering with the resources within the community. I would love to say that the hospital can walk in and build a bunch of houses, or we could do a bunch of things. I think everybody that's on this panel would love to do a lot of things that we independently are not going to be able to do. This isn't a one organization problem, it's a community problem, and we all have to partner together to solve this. The hospital is actively involved, wants to be actively involved. We have a lot of experts in behavioral health. We're starting to integrate behavioral health into our primary care offices. We're integrating them onto our inpatient units. We're never going to be the final say or the solution when it comes to behavioral health. There is going to have to be a community approach, a partnership with Dante and team. Not one organization is going to be able to solve that. So I'll turn it over to Pam, who doesn't have a microphone. So.
Hello, everyone. I am Pam Hernandez. I'm the director of Rising Up Warming Center and Client Choice Pantry. On a normal day in our mornings, we deal with our homeless population. The majority of the morning consists of 90% of the clients that walk through are either on some form of drug or alcohol or on the streets or mental health issues. We work very well with all of our community partners here with our homeless population. Last count that I had, we had roughly 200 individuals on the street, whether that be in sheds, abandoned buildings, etc. That's where we find people. We also have an outreach team that goes out and makes sure that people are safe. And the reason is because of the opiates and all the drugs that are out there, we want to make sure that our neighbors are safe. And when I say neighbors, 85% of the people that we deal with that are on the streets, they belong to our community. So that means they're related to your neighbor or you or someone close to you. So that I'm the humanitarian piece here saying that, you know what, these are our people. We use the resource, Centennial's resource person, so we're partnering together to go out and make sure that people are safe and help in the ways that they might need help. So if that means transporting somebody to mental health or transporting them to the hospital or even transporting them out of town for some necessary diagnostic tests, we do that as well. But again, I want to say they are our community.
Thank you, Pam. You want to introduce yourself, Bill, and then Jeff?
I'm Bill. Okay. I'm Bill Garcia, councilman from Ward 2. I'll let the experts talk tonight. So, but I came to show support to my community and also Lauren, who has worked hard to put this together.
And I'm Jeff Morford, Ward 1 Councilman, and I just kind of echo what Bill and Lauren said. I support here, and if anybody has any questions afterwards or can't reach any of these individuals, feel free to reach out to me, and I will try to get the message to who needs it, to who it needs to go to.
Okay, at this point, we kind of want to let you do most of the talking now. Anybody that has concerns, issues, things that they just want to bring to our attention so that we can learn from you. The one thing I did want to add as we have this conversation, and I'm glad Pam pointed out that we are talking about a lot of people that do live and try to survive in this community, and although at the state level and in politics, there's going to be fighting about how to handle this problem, addiction and mental health and behavioral health, they don't know party lines. So those who suffer represent all people. So just keep that in mind as we go forth this conversation. So welcome. If you would like to speak, please come up to the microphone just so the folks at home can hear you. And it's your night. Oh yes, please say your name and so that we can so that Michelle can get that noted.
Good evening. My name's Tony Salvatore. A few of you guys know me. I live on Warner Street. A few members or a few people in here from Warner Street are also here tonight. I can only speak on my personal accounts of what's been going on, and I got some questions, and I don't know exactly what, like you guys said, it's all comes down from a state level on what can and can't be done. I guess one of my concerns is the growing the crime and the drugs growing in this town. It's growing at an exponential rate. I see it more and more every single day. A couple of weeks ago, a woman half naked, I mean, I'm talking no pants, underwear, nothing, walks into a 7-Eleven, raising hell. Truck last week was stolen from out front of my house. I mean, directly in front of my house. It wasn't my truck. It was my neighbor's truck. Sharp had mentioned that they dropped the trailer, so the trailer was recovered, but the truck was never recovered. People across the street from us were bringing in drugs, stolen goods, you name it, they were bringing it in. I found used condoms behind my house in the alleyway where my kids run up and down the alley and play. They don't go back there no more. So it's a huge concern to the safety of our families and the public. And, the unfortunate thing is we keep hearing that it's a state level, these are people, we can't violate their rights, but at the same time, our rights are being violated. Our safety is being violated by these people. And, it's not what you guys aren't doing. It's the appearance that they're being catered to and our safety isn't. So I guess the question that I have here is, when it comes to repeat offenders, how many times is one person allowed to repeat before it's considered a felony or prison time is implemented with these individuals? Is there any statute or ordinance put on these individuals for constantly repeating?
So on some crimes, you can be deemed a habitual offender. You could be charged as a habitual offender, but misdemeanor crimes don't count towards habitual offending. And so our drug laws have changed in such that you can possess up to 3 grams of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and it's a ticketable offense. The statute says we can't even arrest you for it. We have to write you a ticket. And so it's not a felony level crime, which would, after you were convicted, if you were convicted of numerous felonies, you could be charged as a habitual offender. But misdemeanor crime doesn't count for that.
And so is there anything that these people, do they, what's the word I'm looking for? Do they experience any consequences with, yes, are there any consequences for these people that, are committing these misdemeanors? Like what happens?
And I think that's part of the problem. Um, there may be a fine attached. Like I said, with the bond, a lot of the bond reform that they've called it, they literally go to jail and they're either PR bonded and they get out. So they'll get a warrant for their arrest when they don't show up for court. We'll arrest them. They'll go to court or they'll go to jail. They aren't held to go to court, and then they're bonded again immediately and they don't come to court. So it goes on and on and on, and they could have 5, 10, 15 charges pending, and there's really no accountability at all, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge issue, and this is what I keep bringing up at the state, because there are people, especially in the House, that always point towards that those are the victims, not you guys. You guys aren't the victims. They are the victims, and that they should have what you talked about was the rights. And my problem with that is I keep saying, is like people getting victimized all across because of drugs and the crime that come with them. And I said, we've got to change the attitude up here. And these two are correctly, Chief Sharp and Sheriff Martin are correct on there's very little respect for law enforcement, first of all. And then second of all, the laws have changed. In fact, I'm sure you guys knew about my bond bill that Representative Evans and I, and actually Senator Roberts was on. He's a former prosecutor and a Democrat, but we were all on this bond bill to prevent what happened a few years ago, where if you're a violent offender, you don't get a PR bond. But that can happen now, is that you get a PR bond if you're a violent offender, and we tried to change that, and that bill died.
So a PR bond, to my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is a bond that's issued by the state, correct?
It's issued by the courts,
By the courts.
whatever judge or magistrate that holds court that day.
And who pays that bond?
A PR bond is no money out of your pocket. You're signing out on your own recognizance. It's a personal recognizance. That's what PR
So
is.
so it's not something that says, okay, we're going to release you and we're just going to forward that bill to the taxpayers. That's
No,
not how that works?
no.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify.
But
That
I
was
will
my
tell you
understanding.
that it took effect the 1st of May. Our chief judge for the 13th Judicial District did change the bond schedule, and all new arrests are no bonds. So if somebody gets arrested today, they're going to sit in my jail until they see the judge, which they have to see a judge within 48 hours. Generally, they see the judge the next day, including weekends, except for Saturdays. We don't have court on Saturday, but we do every other day of the week. And
Okay.
so generally, bond is set within 48 hours.
And in some cases, there's a bond schedule. So when we bring somebody in, and he's right, the acting chief judge has changed a lot of that. But in the past, you bring a bond schedule in, and it may be that it's a PR bond automatically. So all that means is they get booked, fingerprinted, photographed, and they're kicked out the door based on that schedule. We don't get to choose what that is or hold them on no bond. That's based on what the judge has put out as a schedule.
So then that leads me into my next question then is, when these people are released, they're put back out onto the streets, what can we do? Because I think there may be, and I can't speak for anyone in here, but at least for myself, not, I guess, ignorant to what we are as a community are allowed to do. What kind of pushback can we have towards these people? What can we do to protect our property, our families? How do we push these people off of our streets? Like, for instance, I know on Warner Street, we went and talked to the homeowner where all this was happening, and we pushed him, and we pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed him. It seems, again, I can't speak on what it is that he's actually doing, but it seems like the traffic has slowed down quite a bit. I haven't seen the individuals over there that I used to see, so it seems like he's starting to push back. But we had to go to him and say, hey, it's like, you're becoming a problem in our neighborhood. He's like, you've lived here for a lot of years. You've been very kind to everyone around here. You're a nice guy, but you're letting these people into our homes, and it's becoming a problem. And it seems like he's he's actively done his part to push these people out of his home, but what can we do to further push it out of our community?
And I think this is a great example. I mean, I know you came to the council and we worked together to try to work on this. There is no easy answer, right? I wish you could say, in this case, I think we have had success, and you guys, as the community, had more impact on it than we did, I think. But we worked together. We need to continue to make arrests. We need to continue to do our side of it. And when you can put that pressure on the neighbor, that's great. What we got to be careful, though, is understanding that if you confront somebody and they don't want to talk to you, they don't have to talk to you. Just because they're walking down the street or they don't belong in the neighborhood. I know I was talking to Dave earlier, and there's people that brought up yesterday about somebody not belonging in the neighborhood. It's not illegal to walk down the street where you don't belong, to that neighborhood. So we got to be careful. You can try to have a conversation, but if you're threatening or anything like that, you're in violation of the law. When it comes to actual protecting, you can use whatever force is necessary to protect yourself or anybody else. So whatever that means, it depends on the level of force they're using, obviously.
Now, would you guys say necessary force, or is it what we deem necessary? So if someone's coming at,
the judge would say it's what a reasonable person would believe is necessary.
And
so it's not
that's
what
what
we.
the
that's a very
statute
vague
The
statement.
the statute would say what a reasonable person.
And that's a very fake statement because, to me, reasonable is someone's coming at me with a knife. Well, you know what? I want to take out anybody in front of me. And, collateral damage at that point, I'm going to do what I got to do. And it's an unfortunate thing. Now, that's my reasonable, form of
And the statute
action.
says it's what a reasonable person.
Exactly. So, and that's what I'm saying. So my reasonable would be different than anybody else's reasonable. So, and I think that's where, the community is, struggling is, what can I do without getting in trouble? Like, to me, like I said, I would do what I would do. And in my mind, I shouldn't be getting in trouble for what I would do because I would deem that reasonable. So at what point does the law say what's reasonable?
So let me add, first, thank you again, because you have been one of those people that have come forward and made sure that we are hearing that this problem exists and continues to exist. But what I just heard, and you can correct me, but I want to make sure I'm saying back to you, is that you took a very reasonable action. You talked to this person that owned the home, and with that reasonable action, you got even better results than we have been able to get police in the neighborhood. So I would say that is a prime example of a reasonable response. The other thing, again, this is just a starting point conversation. I'm hoping that what will come out of this is a community task force, and we would invite anybody that's in the room to sit on that force so that we can have additional conversations with council, talk with our lawyers, and see what are our options to make it a little more difficult for the people that are breaking the law. And tonight, for the specific law like burglary, damage to your homes, perceived threat to your children, to yourselves, we want to make it more difficult for folks committing crimes. So it sounds silly to say, but light up those areas that are dark by your dumpsters, light up those areas around your front doors and windows. It does put a little bit of onus on the homeowners, but it prevents a whole lot of additional kinds of crimes when you make it uncomfortable for folks that usually want to hide in the dark. But I think you took an extremely reasonable action by having some discussions with that person, and you've achieved some really good results.
Well, thank you. And then I got one more question here, and then I'll leave it to everyone else here behind me. Is there any city-owned buildings, facilities, or anything that can be utilized to help with the rehab or the mental health? From what I'm hearing, there's nothing that's been implemented, nothing put in place. There's no ordinances that say this is what we can do on a city level to help these people as far as getting them, off the streets and put into the correct facilities, into the correct programs. What programs and what facilities can be, forfeited that the city has that we can utilize for this problem?
I would say that none of us can make any kind of decision or can answer that question.
Oh, fair enough.
That is something that you might contact our city manager about, and he can say, absolutely, there is nothing. And I think that question had come up before, and I think that was pretty much the answer. That we do not, as a city, have a facility that we can section off in rooms or whatever and put people like that. But
Okay.
again, if you can direct that to the city manager. I'm not trying to
No, that's fine.
walk
I
the
didn't
side of
know
it,
if there was
but we are
anything that.
not in that position to answer that question
No, and that's
in
fair.
any way.
Fair enough.
Okay,
So,
Tony,
all right,
well, we
thank
really
you.
appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
Could I add something about that? Can I add something? So in my facility, I have a very small facility, but during the day, I do see a lot of homeless people, right? And of course, there's a lot of addiction and mental health. But we try to make sure that we can connect them with resources that will help them in those situations. And so, it's just going to take the community to work together because, we are all community members, right? We want the best for our community, but we have to be able to start coming together and help funnel those into the resources that are there.
So are these resources on a state level or are these on a local level? I mean, in my mind, if it's on a state level, that seems like it's almost a
Well,
counterproductive.
so Morgan County does a lot because we have Centennial and then we also have the hospital. But we are, we're just trying to pull it all together and make sure that people are safe on both sides. Not just the homeless population and not just the community, but all together.
I think just to say, the level of resource here is growing with our new program of in the hospital to be able to help individuals through the withdrawal. We have a great connection with them, so then they could get engage in outpatient services because that's all we do. We don't do any residential. We don't hold folks and go through like a detox phase or a recovery phase with them through that. So the biggest piece is to get individuals to that point in their life to where they want to engage in that, right? That's part of our role here with this new community responder program, so we could outreach them where they're at, and like John said, we could give them the advice to the care, but we got to be more consistent on that, and we want to, as I learned about your environment from Chief Sharp here, we're going to be able to start looking at with these new positions we bring. How do we do more of that street outreach and engage in those individuals? So you, as community members, obviously would have resources from us to help them engage with the thought process of engaging in recovery, but also we could do more of that street outreach so it's not all on the community to be coming out and giving somebody a card again over and over again that you suggest they should get that help. And so we are trying to bring it in the ways that we can in affordable ways through the St. Elizabeth partnering and being able to bring that withdrawal system, and then us coming in with care coordination and bringing them into outpatient. Because right now, if we do send anybody to inpatient treatment or anything for substance use or psych treatment, it's all in the Front Range, and then there's a cost to get them there, get them back, and figure that out.
And the closest detox center is Greeley. It's Island Grove and Greeley, and a lot of times it takes people from your sheriff's department that sometimes will take people over there, or even sometimes Centennial will take them. But it just depends on if they have room or if they even have the enough people to take care of them that day. So that's our closest. These are all things that we are very aware of, that we're trying to get more resources out here. Then when I talk about resources, we actually had a discussion with Centennial and North Range Behavioral Health. We're having like a satellite detox center out here where it's closer to Northeast Colorado. But these are all we're trying to figure out ways to make it better to be out here for people to have resources to, if they want help, they can get help.
And Tony, we have inmates in custody that don't bond out. They're here for significant, serious crime and they don't bond out. And if they are addicted and they choose to participate, I can't force them to participate. I have behavioral health services that I contract to that treat them in the jail, and we also provide, it's called MAT, it's medically assisted treatment, and it's for the opioid withdrawal. And we give them medical doses every day that they participate in, but it's very expensive, and it comes from the state. The Office of Behavioral Health funds that program, and then Region 4 opioid just awarded me funding to keep that program going.
So what, guys, I'm sorry.
No.
So what about like an outreach program to try to go out and reach these kids before it does become a program? I know DARE, when I was growing up, used to be a really big thing. I don't see that around no more. So is there any kind of an outreach program to go and talk to these kids and what it actually means to fall into that kind of a lifestyle?
Actually, there's a lot of outreach programs. I know Centennial Mental Health has a lot. There's a lot of other, some of the organizations that are in this room that are representative have their own. I will tell you from the DARE perspective, and Officer Malone sitting here, he actually does do DARE in the elementary school. We started that 2 years ago. So this is our third year to do DARE. We are starting some of that. We do a lot of that. There's a ton, and there's a lot of it in this room that we do outreach from many organizations.
We have a substance abuse and suicide prevention school programming that starts in 5th grade that we do. We do need to bring it back to Fort Morgan. That is something that I'll be working with the school on and getting our community, our team connected back to Fort Morgan, because it's not currently in the Fort Morgan schools. But I have kids in middle school, and the amount of vaping and things that's going on there, we definitely need to start doing a lot more. So that's one area we hope to try to bring back into next year.
And I just want to touch on our detox unit. So we've talked a lot about it, and it's something new and something that's going to be great for us. I do just want to clarify and make sure everybody understands it's a voluntary unit. So it's not something that Chief Sharp any of his officers can bring anybody and force anybody into this program. It is a voluntary program. Also in the crowd, we have Sarah, who is our administrative director for that program. And so Sarah's whole job is just building relationships within the community and the outreaching communities as well for finding patients that will be successful in our program, but then also ensuring that after the patient's discharged from that program has somewhere to go. And that could be anything from going and seeing Dante's team over at Centennial Mental Health. It could be connections that Sarah's made in Greeley. It could be in Denver. And so for that program, it's not just the 3 to 4 days of the detox. It's really a full wraparound program, partnering with community partners. But we have a whole Sarah. That's all that she does. 40 hours a week is just build relationships with community partners, both in town, in the county, and across the state. So I know a lot of you in this room probably have known Sarah through her building of the program, but it's going to be a great resource for the town. Again, not a single solution, but it's part of the overall solution.
And we do something similar with the MAP program. When somebody stays in jail and they're treated, once they release, that's when they're going to relapse. And we have a handoff program where they can continue getting that treatment from Dante's staff. And so we're not just kicking them out the door and saying, all right, you're on your own, swim now. We try to facilitate handoff services, and we coordinate that with Dante and his staff.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Tony.
Hey, Lauren, just so you know, there are some questions. There's 4 questions on here whenever you want to
Okay.
take those, however you want to handle that.
Dusty, you want to go, and then we'll hit some folks on YouTube.
So this is a question for law enforcement. Sorry, Dusty Johnson, Fort Morgan community member. We're mentioning how we need community sources to solve this issue and to offer support for mental and behavioral health. Talking with other counties, transportation. When you have out of town folks who are detained in jail and then they get released, is there a transportation system to get them back to their community so they have that support, or are we just letting them loose in the community and hoping they find their way with no community support? And we also then have that homeless issue because they don't have anywhere to go. Is that an issue you're seeing?
Somewhat, but Dante has a transport division of Centennial Mental Health, and the sheriff is one of my duties is I was responsible for enacting on court orders. So if I had a court order transport, I can move them. But Dante now, if people are voluntarily compliant, they're not resistive, Dante has a transport division that can transport them. We've helped where we can. We don't have a bus service that comes through here anymore. And so we used to be able to help people get on the bus, get out of town. Pam has enlightened me on some new stuff that's around, but we try to help where we can.
And I think it's important to know we're all compassionate. I mean, We care. And I think we see from our officers have actually taken people, asked for permission, taken people to other communities if that's where they're from in that situation. If somebody comes and asks, we're going to do everything we can. I know we've worked with Pam to get people bus tickets and train tickets and get them to other communities if that's where they're trying to go, because we're not trying to hold them here either if that's not where they want to be. But they do have to come ask. We wouldn't know that otherwise.
No, and I just didn't know if you have the resources, and that's a state sometimes funding issue of some counties have that, some don't, so.
Yeah, and our current program is really focused on getting individuals to care. But we do a lot of all the fundraising that we do as an organization doesn't go to pay for things that we're already paid for to do, but it's to do these types of things. So that's another resource that we'll be able to make sure law enforcement is aware of. We'll buy bus tickets, we'll buy, whatever individuals need when they want to get out of the community and go to a different area. We also coordinate their care if they're already receiving our services here, and they're moving to another state or part of the state. We'll work with that accountability entity from there and make sure that they engage in services when they get there as well. So, but yeah, right now we're funded by the Region 4 Opioid Council to do rides for individuals that want to seek out patient services, inpatient services out of the area. And then we do rides all over Fort Morgan, Morgan County to get individuals to substance use treatment for free.
And that was one of the things that we did when we put together the Region 4 Opioid Council and really pushed for getting people where they need to go to get the help they need. So, and that money is coming from the lawsuit that so many people have died from the opioids that were prescribed to them. So we're getting that money now and using that. Well, Region 4 is getting that money now, not the state. Region 4, I used to be a county commissioner, so when I say we, yeah, that's what I mean. But Region 4 has really worked hard to make sure that was where the money was going to be spent, is to find transportation to be able to get people help where they needed help.
And to talk about the compassion that Lauren's talked about, even when we haven't had funding in our agencies, I've had officers, and I know Chief Sharp has, that have paid for these tickets out of their pockets to get these guys rides out of town, to try to get them to services and where they need to go. And we've driven people to the Front Range, but I've also had other agencies bring people and drop people off in our community. So it's not fair for me if somebody doesn't want to go to say, come on, get in, and I'm driving you to Greeley and drop you in Greeley or drop you in Hudson. I generally, the people that we've taken to Denver, we've taken to a shelter that is willing to accept them. We'll call ahead of time, and if they say they will accept them, we'll drive them up there. But I'm not going to go drop a problem in somebody else's neighborhood. It's not fair to them.
That's part of the outreach that we're talking about with Centennial Mental Health and us as well. And Sandy, I mean, she goes out and talks to some of these homeless people and tries to talk to them. And then if they need help, she's even driven them to Centennial Mental Health to try to get them the services. One time, she was just telling me today, she took somebody to Centennial Mental Health. They got out of the car and walked away. They didn't go in the door. Yeah. So, I mean, we can't force them to go, but we're trying to literally hold their hand and get them to the services that they need, and hoping, like Dante was saying, trying to get them to care. If they care about themselves, we can get them the help. But if they don't, it's a revolving door.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Dusty. Lauren, would you pick a question or two from YouTube?
So one. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add a public service announcement because of the fentanyl issue. Stephen Tubbs did make a free film called Devastated, Colorado's Fentanyl Disaster. Our sheriff did speak on that, and it's something I think adult-aged individuals don't have children watch it, but it definitely hits this crisis. It's great public outreach, really just trying to get the community involved on what's going on mentally, behaviorally, in our communities on both sides, and it's really about caring. So,
thank you.
So since Dusty brought that up, I will tell you that I've talked with Chief Sharp and the other law enforcement, and I talked to Wayne Johnson tonight, and he's willing to host this at the Cover Theater for us if we wanted to see it in a group. But it is a free movie. You can watch it online. But we're going to try to work with Centennial Mental Health, law enforcement, the Cover Theater, and offer a showing of this movie.
He did say the popcorn is not free.
Yeah. It was for
yeah,
exactly. it also has myself and my Department of Human Services at the time, Logan County Commissioner, but Department of Human Service Director in it as well. And we talk about your issue's not unique to Fort Morgan. And Sterling, when I was a Logan County Commissioner, the state or the courts had to take 68 kids from their homes in 1 year due to methamphetamines. And so that becomes the county's responsibility, the Department of Human Services' responsibility to put those kids somewhere, to the tune of $1.3 million is what it was costing the taxpayers of Logan County. And thank goodness that we had Child Welfare Allocation Committee, which I was also on, that we were able to get money from that to be able to supplement what the taxpayers were paying. So this is not a unique thing for Morgan County. It is all over Northeast Colorado, and it's a terrible thing. You guys, I'm hearing some of the same stories: crime coming from drugs, other stuff that's coming from drugs. That, like you said, with the used condoms in the alley and all that stuff. I mean, it is not unique to Morgan. This is happening all over the place. And it's because of the laws at the state of Colorado where they are making them very difficult to be able to enforce anything, and it's making these guys' job really hard. And I'm every day I go up there, I try to support law enforcement and try to make laws to help them with their job and actually get people help, like Dante said, because getting the resources out here, that is a huge deal. But I really appreciate this conversation tonight.
So one person made a couple comments and a question, so I'll just go through all of those at the same time if that's okay. But says, unfortunately, with current statutes, we are enabling these people to continue down the path. Misdemeanor for possession of highly addictive drugs, offering Narcan at dispensaries for overdosing, and why. Then he goes on to say, what I have observed with a lot of the drug-addicted homeless is that they are choosing this lifestyle. They set up communities of their own and then invade neighborhood to neighborhood. These people are causing a lot of problems that we are seeing now. For the people that have fallen into this, absolutely we need to reach out to them, but enabling drug use is not the answer. And I think we would all say that same thing. I mean, I think we echo that, and we can be compassionate for the people and try to get them the help, but we also have to help everybody else in the community. And I think that's my own personal opinion, trying to stay non-political, is that is where we've lost it. We need to help people, and we need them, but we also need to help the public. And we've gone so far to help the individual that we're hurting everybody else. And that's where we need to find that balance. We went from probably being too far and actually incarcerating people for being mentally ill. That's not okay to me. Yet then we got to the other point of we're not holding anybody accountable for what they're doing, and that affects everybody here. That's why we're having this conversation tonight. As far as why the dispensaries are offering Narcan, I don't know anything about the dispensaries. I don't frequent them, and we don't have any in Fort Morgan, so I'm not sure. I do know that the health department gives it. And I know we have officers that we carry it in our car, and we save lives monthly probably with Narcan. We're using it all the time. Hospital can say how many people that is, but it's a lot. And I know we do have individuals, at least one individual that I know of 4 times that we've shown up on an overdose, and she was the one that gave Narcan to somebody else. So we see that. We would have dead people if it wasn't for that. So, where's that balance? If we're not giving it out, we're going to have a lot of dead people, and I don't think anybody wants that either.
And I can tell you that I do give Narcan out. When an inmate leaves the jail, if they want Narcan, we give it to them to take with them. And there's a law that requires that.
And they give it to us at the state, because a lot of people around the Capitol sometimes you have to use it on the people that are around the Capitol. So they give it to us at the state.
Yeah, I wouldn't correlate dispensing of a life-saving drug as promoting drug use. I think we got to be clear on that it's not necessarily promoting drug use. It's more of a safety measure. So I would not want to make that correlation.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody else asked, where is the district attorney on this committee? He should be here to help the sheriff and chief. Just my thought. I will say we didn't invite the district attorney, not because he wouldn't be cooperative. Like I said, we have many people in this community. I think somebody talked about the Department of Human Services also. There's a lot we could have had up here. We had to limit the number. So I know Travis Sides would be more than happy to be here and would be active in this conversation. We have a great relationship with all of them. We just, for the sake of time and space, we had to limit that panel.
And I would offer again, as a starting point this evening, this is going to evolve, and it's an invitation that we can make to make sure that we're getting additional voices as we kind of go forward with this.
And the last question that's here so far is explain the popular response, quote, "We need to come together as a community," end of quote. That is why everyone is there. Explain what coming together means and what actions are involved. So I'll let anybody take that one.
Well, I'll jump in, and then I expect some other folks to maybe help me out. But we, in this town, I'm not from Fort Morgan, but I've lived in many places. And for such a small city, we have a large number of agencies that work every day, hours and hours, with advocates to help folks that are suffering all kinds of issues in addition to the ones that we talk about this evening. So we do have a tremendous amount of resources that are available through nonprofit agencies in Fort Morgan. And we will probably be reaching out to some of those folks, but here we are. This is really what bringing community together is. If folks at home can see the audience, we have a lot of residents that are sitting here because they're concerned about the community, and they're concerned about their neighbors. They're concerned about you who are watching also. So my short answer is that this is community, bring community together in action.
I wish we had an easy answer. I think, I saw San Francisco spent billions of dollars. They're obviously not solving the problem. I don't know there's an easy answer, but I think bringing the community together is trying to work together to find a solution that works for us and not relying on San Francisco to try to figure out how to solve our problem.
And I don't think money is always the answer, right? And I think for me as the CEO here at Centennial, the main thing that I set out to do is try to identify what everybody thought we didn't do right and where we haven't been able to perform and meet expectations. So coming together as a community for me is you all giving us the feedback. And some of your asks and some of your questions may not be answerable or realistic or attainable, but it'll give us some step forward into a way to identify what we can do with all of our partners up here to ensure that your voices are heard in how we deliver our services and the things that we do in the community and make an impact outside of our doors and not just behind them.
Okay. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Sandy. I am the community responder. So I am employed by Centennial Mental Health. I work out of the police department. And I am to be available when an officer is dealing with somebody in kind of a sensitive situation. Maybe a parent is upset with their 17-year-old and is needing someone to listen to them. I'm that person. When they're dealing with a mental health issue, crisis, they can call me in and I can support them. And I can listen to the community members and give them services, give them outreach. Part of my expectations were to gather as many resources as I could and have them available with me at all times. So I went to our local agencies, Department of Human Services. I've collected cards, brochures. I've worked hand in hand with Rising Up to have those resources ready. But I can tell you that in this area, we are rolling out some new things. There's a new program that I'll be working. It's called the PATH program, and it's to help people transition from homelessness. This has a lot of very good things. It has the potential to do very good things for the homelessness, such as a management system, homeless information management system to connect all of these resources and get people on the right path to achieving a place to live that's not on somebody's couch, that's not in a shed, but to actually get them a place to be. So I just wanted to let you guys know there are a lot of programs out there. if you see me around, if you need help with something, I'd be more than happy to point people where they need to go.
Thank you.
Thank you
Sandy.
so much.
Anybody else in the audience? We'd love to hear some other voices. We have some time, so don't be shy. Come on up. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Myra Hanson. I'm a middle school teacher, and yes, it was crazy hair day today at school. I wanted to actually speak to all of you and thank you very much for being here tonight. And also to let everyone know sitting here, you not only have a vote, you have a voice.
Right.
I have a rare bleeding disorder, and I have had difficulties, and I decided instead of sitting quietly and just not doing anything about it, that I needed to step up and I needed to have a voice. So I lobbied on a federal level, and I got a bill, along with a group of people, a bill passed into law on federal level. I also did it on state level. 5 people out of 6 people in the state of Colorado in their lifetime will be positively affected by that bill being made into a law. You have the opportunity sitting here tonight with the passion in your heart to do the same thing about this. We have a vote, we have a voice. Make the change. Senator Pelton doesn't have to sit up here by himself and go to the state and try to make this happen. People make it happen. That's why we are a democracy. I'm a social studies teacher. I teach this to my 6th graders every day. Make a difference. I stood up, I made a difference. I did it with the National Hemophilia Foundation. You can do it right here in Fort Morgan. You can make amazing differences. Take that passion in your heart and make it happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Sarah Arndt, so I'm working with the New Vision Withdrawal Management. But to answer the question for the youth, there is a new program that is just launching. It's called Young People in Recovery. And I met with Rayanne this week to learn more about it. And it's for anybody from the age up from 5 and up. So it is outreaching for the young kiddos in this community, as there's a new chapter here in Morgan. So keep an eye out for those flyers and other resources, because there are a lot of resources coming out for the addiction piece, not just the detox at the hospital, but some other resources that are coming through. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Sandra Hosier. In my alley where I live, I don't live in an alley, but my house is on an alley. We have a drug house about 2 houses down. We know it's a drug house. Every half hour, there'll be a car come by. He'll pull in. He walks in and gets the drugs so nobody can see him, comes back out, gets in his car, delivers them, comes back every 10 minutes, all weekend long. Same car. It's called an Uber for drugs. Now, I understand that the DA and the judge probably has problems with putting people away for taking drugs, okay? I want to know when somebody has been arrested for taking drugs, that list that you told me it was a misdemeanor, okay, do they have to be signed off by a judge for no bail?
No, they get a ticket. They don't go to jail. Most of the time, they're issued a summons like you would a traffic summons.
Okay. So those orders came from Polis?
Well, they came from the legislators.
Polis. Okay. Polis.
Right, but, well,
Okay.
legislators, yeah, and signed by
Okay,
the governor,
Polis.
yes.
They came from Polis.
Yes.
Okay. When somebody comes in front of a person, or the judge, and they have to be bonded out, does the judge have to not give bond, or is it up to the judge's discretion?
No, they have to be given a bond. And so there's some changes that are happening right now, because when the death penalty became illegal in Colorado, it meant that all cases now have bond, including first-degree murder. Before, that was a no bondable offense. But even now, first-degree murder can have a bond. There's legislation going through to change that, that first-degree murder would be a no bond offense, but all crimes have to have a bond set.
And that includes misdemeanors and felonies.
Yes.
That comes from the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution, where it talked about you have to have bail.
Okay.
The Supreme Court, a lot of court rulings have gone on to define that more, and laws have also defined that.
And like I talked about earlier, I did run a bill that said that if you're a violent offender, you weren't going to be able to have a PR bond, but that bill died in committee. The party in power killed it.
Well, I wish there was a judge here. Maybe they could personally
Well,
answer my question. Is it up to the discretion of the judge? Can the judge put down discretion as to whether they have to pay or not?
Yes.
So it is actually the judge that's saying you walk or don't walk.
Yes, but it's based on statutory requirements that he has to consider.
He considers them, but it's not, he doesn't have to go by it.
He does. He reads whenever somebody comes to jail, there has to be a warrantless arrest affidavit done. The officer who brings somebody to jail types out an affidavit detailing the facts of the case, and then that affidavit gets faxed, or not faxed, but emailed now, to, I know it does show my age, to the on-call judge.
Okay.
And the judge reviews it, has to review it within 48 hours to find probable cause or not. Most generally, there's probable cause found, and then they go before a magistrate to be advised of the possible penalties against them, and the judge takes into account the facts that are listed in the affidavit and decides whether a bond is appropriate.
Okay. Can any prior arrests be brought up?
They are.
Does then the judge have discretion regarding whether he stays in jail or not?
As far as I know, yes.
So if a repeat offender,
To be fair, the judge sets a bond. They have the discretion on what that bond amount is, but they do have to set a monetary bond.
Okay.
So they could set it at $1 million, but they have to set a bond, and that
Right.
person could bond.
so if there's somebody that goes in 4 times for stealing a vehicle,
One of the things that
he
also
can set it at $1 million and he has to stay in jail until he goes to court.
He could. The judge has to set a reasonable bond.
Right.
And so
Okay.
the judge determines what's reasonable. I don't have input in that.
To the 4 people that had their vehicle stolen, I think $1 million is very reasonable.
I don't discount that. I
Okay.
could understand having a
Yes.
vehicle taken.
So I think we're talking more about the state is dictating to Morgan County and the city of Fort Morgan who has to stay in jail and who gets out.
I think, and Senator Pelton might remember the exact year, I'd say, or Sheriff Martin, a couple years ago, they changed the law actually to where they have magistrates that do all of the bond hearings within that 48-hour hearing over weekends, for example. So we have magistrates, there's 2 of them, I believe, in the state of Colorado. So we have people that have no ties to Morgan County or to anywhere that's deciding that bond hearing, that's also deciding it for Denver and for everywhere else. That is something that changed a couple years ago.
So can we change that back?
Well, the other thing is too I mean, we're trying to we're doing a lot of stuff to try to make some bond reform to try to help the law enforcement out. It doesn't go very far. Every year I've brought something. So this year I brought something. I'm going to bring something again next year to see if we. And I even had Democrats on the bill to help me, and it still didn't get forward. Now, what the judge decides with bonds, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff Martin, this is all public information. And some sheriffs are putting it out there and letting everybody know who gets released and that sort of thing off of PR bonds or what's going on. So some communities are getting that right off the bat, but this is all public information.
Okay. Our judges here, are they appointed by the governor or they are? They're not voted in.
They're appointed, but their retention, there's a retention committee, and then you vote on retention. You'll see that
On your ballot.
on your ballot, whether a judge should be retained or not.
And if he's not retained, then the governor appoints one?
Would
So in other words,
appoint
the
a
governor
replacement.
does that. Okay. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
And one of the people here pointed out that, and they're right, the judge makes a ruling based on the law, not their personal choice. I mean, there is a law that says what they can and can't do. And I know we have chiefs and sheriffs meetings throughout eastern Colorado every other month, and we talk about the chief judge actually has been showing up, and he's right, it is public. What they were also asking, because judges can't just come out and tell you, they can't have a political stance.
No, I understand.
So they can't defend their position, but one of the things that happens is the law says this is what the bond is, and people are upset with the judge because they set this bond, but the judge doesn't always have discretion. Sometimes they do, oftentimes they don't because they have to follow that law, and the law says the bond can be no more than X or whatever. So it's not necessarily the judge's personal choice, although there is obviously some leniency. It says it has to be within these confines. One judge might be here and one judge might be here. They're still within that law, and the law does dictate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other folks that are present want to come up and share any thoughts?
I don't.
Good evening. My name's Robert Pennington, and I live here in Fort Morgan area. And I appreciate everybody trying to come together and solve this problem. And it's obvious there's no easy answers, but I think the city of Denver shows that just offering services doesn't solve anything. Buying a hotel and putting the people in it doesn't solve anything. In Denver, they had 300 people in a hotel, and only one accepted the offered services of Centennial or whatever it was. So I think we definitely don't want to follow that blueprint. And I don't know where the helping and tough love line is. I don't know if the rising up actually encourages and makes it easier for them to be homeless. Do we make it tougher for them to be homeless? I don't know the right answer. Are there communities around, whether it's in Colorado or other states, that have been able to halt or successfully address the homeless issue? Do you guys know of any viable alternatives?
Robert, I don't know the answer to that. I know from talking to my other sheriffs around the state, this is a lot larger problem in some of the warmer climate areas of the state. Mesa County is really inundated with this problem. And part of it's because of the climate there. They don't experience the cold like we do. And as far as I know, it's a problem throughout the United States.
And I think everybody's situation is different. I've gone out and talked to the homeless people several times. I've talked to some of them that literally came here because marijuana is in Log Lane, and that's what they're here for. They're self-medicating with mental illness and other issues. That's what they're doing for self-medication. I'm not saying marijuana is all of the problem by any means, but that is a problem for some people. That is one of the reasons that brought him here. Other people, and not from here, but he's made it a home now. That's where home is now. And other people come here for different reasons and then stay and like it. So most people that are here because they want to be here for whatever reason, but it's not fair to say in any situation that it's always because of any situation. Everybody's situation is different.
I would just say, you definitely have a point, right? Offering services is one thing, but the problem that we face as a provider organization is that we can't compel anyone to want to change their life, right? And that's really what it takes. We offer a really big service line of compelled service. We do DUI treatment, right? And the number of repeat offenders even into that program that we have, because they're only engaging for I need to get my license back. Law enforcement doesn't have a lot of those rules anymore where a diversion program would even really be successful out here, where you're just getting off with a ticket. So it's really going to have to come from how do we get individuals engaged with wanting to do better and be better for their own good, and that's where success for me success looks like our outreach program expanding a whole lot more than we initially thought, so we could start trying to maybe wear them down.
Any other questions off of YouTube?
I would like to add something.
Yeah, please.
To the last comment. So I started Rising Up 9 years ago, and the reason is I belong to the community. I want the best for our community, and I know that we have these issues. Do I enable? No. Lots of times, we are a compact building, and so the thing is, when I have homeless people and I'm working with someone during the day or whatever, they come in and they help. So really our homelessness, yes, we have the drug issues, yes, we have the mental health, but our homelessness looks different than Denver. It looks different than Sterling. And the reason for that is because, like I said before, 85% belong to us. They are our community. So when our warming center is open, which is November through March, this really looks different than like Denver Rescue Mission, because 85% of those people that stay with us, they work in our factories. So they have an income, but then it relates to we have no housing. So that is a problem. And Morgan County is working on that right now. We have an action team that we're working on housing, and we are getting people into housing. But we do look different. And so I do take that. I understand what you're saying, because do we want to enable the situation? No, but also the humanity is, you know what, these people belong to our community. When we have deaths, such as this past few months, it affects our community. It doesn't just affect the person that died, it affects 2 or 3 different families because they've lost a loved one. And so that's where I come from. And I would be more than happy to visit with you regarding, what we see. It's rough out here. It really and truly is rough, and I count on the community a lot.
I'd just like to say something. I hope the community understands that Lauren has put this together and at the direction of the mayor to bring this together. I mean, I thank you so much, all you individuals, for taking your time to come out, Homeland Security, Sheriff, everyone, hospital, and Pam. And I want to say that we didn't want to ever push this under a rug and hide it from anybody. We wanted to hit it on directly, if I'm correct, Lauren. We wanted to hit this in the nose and say, what can we do as a community? And I think that you see that what the start is, this is only the start. Okay, so anyway, but I appreciate you all for coming out. I appreciate everybody for their time, and I'm not going to conclude it, of course, but I just wanted to have you understand that we are committed to this in our community also.
And I'd like to just say that the 3 gentlemen that are right here next to me here, I communicate with them all the time. So, I mean, I talk to Sheriff Martin all the time. I talk to Dante all the time. And Chief Sharp sends me emails constantly when we have discussions back and forth. And in fact, he if it wasn't for his email and popping up, and I'm like, oh, what does Chief Sharp say today? And I'm going to get invited to a community meeting. This is wonderful. But I just want to point out that your law enforcement is doing everything they can to protect you within the laws that are set at the legislature. And like I said, I'll say it again, there is not a very deep respect for police officers up there from the party in power, and they are trying to make laws weaker and reclassify what a victim is, and it's really getting to be pretty frustrating for all of us. And we are fighting against it, but again, when we're in the minority, it's kind of a tough thing. So, and I have to tell you, I see Sheriff Martin up at the Capitol all the time. He comes up there to really defend your Second Amendment rights and for other things as well. But I just really appreciate everybody at the table and having these conversations. And it's nice to have the community. I wish more communities would do this, because I'm going to be coming down here to your Fort Morgan Council meeting and saying, all right, here's the bill that I got coming up, and if you guys can all testify, that would be great. And you don't have to be in person. You don't have to be in person. You can do it remotely. So that would be a wonderful thing. So anyway, thank you for being. It's an honor serving you, and I really appreciate being here.
And I would like to say, I don't know if people realize how good our relationships are with everybody here, but also throughout our community. Talking to law enforcement officers throughout the state and even throughout the country, it's pretty rare to have these strong relationships. So I know we are really trying to do everything we can, but I know it's not enough. That's why we're here, right? And I know it's probably frustrating to hear us talk about all these things that we can't do, and we haven't really come up with any solutions. We've identified the problem, which we all knew. But this is step one of hopefully trying to find some answers. And I do appreciate everybody coming out and all of you guys coming out, and hopefully we can take step two and start working on some of the solutions. But I will say real quickly also, one of the things that we identified, as I said earlier, I think there's no consequence for some of the actions. And I will say even for the drug dealers in Colorado, the consequence, in my opinion, is almost non-existent, which is why we partnered with HSI, because they are still a federal agency and we can charge things through the federal court system. I'm not one that would usually say the federal government is very efficient, but it is more efficient in this case than the state is, I think. So we've partnered and we've been able to arrest people together that gets charged federally, and you guys will probably never even see those because they get charged federally and it doesn't happen. But we have been arresting people even over the last few months for large amounts of fentanyl and methamphetamine and drugs and some of these things that get charged federally, and it does have an impact in the community. And we partnered with them not only because they provide a resource that we can't do with just a smaller agency, but also because there is consequence on that end that helps us get to the root of the problem. So it's a multifaceted approach. None of us have the ability to solve this problem on our own, or we would have done it. But I think working together, we can impact it. I can't say we can solve it. I think we can impact it.
I want you to know that I hear your frustration. Lauren hears your frustration, because we are equally as frustrated. And they brought this up, that this is the first of many. We're going to come together and we have to work together. And it's on my wall. It's been there forever. Lauren and I used to be investigators together before we were department heads. And it says it's amazing what we can accomplish when we don't care who gets the credit. And it doesn't matter the problem. This is a problem, and we all have to work together and not care who gets the credit. Lauren talked about bringing in HSI. We work this together. We have relationships in our county that don't exist other places. I think Senator Pelton can tell you, but our law enforcement agencies work so well together. And Lauren talked about the Northeast Chief and Sheriff's meeting. I'm hosting that tomorrow. All the Northeast Chiefs of Police and the sheriffs come together tomorrow. And the next month following that, we do it locally. And we come together, we work together, and we share information where we can help each other. And if Lauren needs help, he calls me, and we throw resources at it. And we've been working these problems. I know you're talking about over on Warner and over on Roediger Avenue. I've told my staff, we want meaningful enforcement. And that means if you can find a reason to stop that car, has to be a legal reason, nothing that we're going to make up, because our credibility is on the line. And so it has to be a legal, justifiable reason to make that contact. But where that contact goes from there, it snowballs. And so we've both directed our staff to take meaningful enforcement and try to make these stops where we can and see what we get out of them. I hope so.
And I think that's the last question that just came up here. What is step 2? Is there someone on the organization that should control the agenda? I think there needs to be defined, outlined, actionable measures. So I think that's.
Yeah, I have never done this before, but it was the folks in the community that came before council that initiated all of these discussions. So number one, you have power in the community because you got our attention very quickly. But having not kind of put these types of task forces together, I'll work with Chief Sharp, some of the other folks up here to kind of develop what next steps are. If you've given us your email, that's the way that we'll mostly communicate with you, but you can reach any city council member in any ward. If you're in the county, you can reach out to your county commissioners. Maybe we can encourage some county commissioner participation. And so the answer is, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we are not stopping here. We're going to get together, put together next steps, reach out to you, let you know what we're thinking, get your input, and then go to plan B and keep on evolving as we go along and inviting folks to actually get input into how we move forward.
Just want to say that prior to moving here, I lived in Alamosa County, in Alamosa, down south, and I've worked on a homeless task force there for several years through COVID and things like that. We obviously did not find the secret recipe to curing the homelessness issue, but we did. We're already steps ahead, I would say, here in Fort Morgan, because that was not a community-driven council directive. It was really more from the city manager and let's figure this out. So the fact that this council is open to having you all here and taking your feedback in before we jump headfirst into this project says a lot, and I'm more than willing to keep stepping up and committing however I can to support the council as they investigate what we're going to do going forward.
Any other closing remarks from folks? Well, again, just want to thank you all for taking time in the evening. I know you have families, you're working, you have lots of things in your life you'd rather be doing than dealing with people making your lives hell. My fellow councilmen, I know by the support that they came this evening, city manager, we will work together, city attorneys, we'll continue working with our city partners, our nonprofit agencies, do everything we can to make sure that you feel safe and welcome and taken care of in your homes. That's our job. And yeah, thanks, guys. We'll be in touch.
Sign up at the yard.